Hi, everyone. I'm Shertia Brantley, and I'm delighted to be joined here at the virtual Aspen Ideas Festival with PayPal CEO Dan Schulman. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Shartia. So good to see you. Wish we were together.
Likewise, hopefully in the near future. We recently commemorated the 1 year anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. His death, along with those of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, sparked global protests for racial justice and equality. How have you been impacted as a leader and personally?
Yeah. Well, post the death of George Floyd, and as you mentioned, so many others, I never really experienced or saw the amount of emotional outpouring um, across our country, but really amongst every employee inside PayPal. There was such, you know, frustration and despair and anger, obviously some hope that maybe this might be different this time. Um, but it was clear to me that we needed to stand up and and make a statement, make a real statement. And you know, there's a lot that I needed to learn personally. I spoke to a lot of Black leaders across PayPal, a lot of Black leaders across the country. And one of the things that they taught me was that we needed to make this a movement and not a moment in time. Um, because we were thinking initially that we were going to donate a couple of $1 million to some very well deserving nonprofits. And a lot of the leaders that I spoke to in the country said, Dan, that's a really great thing, but that's not going to change the needle going forward. We need corporations to really to stand up for their values, make sure that they're heard, and really make an impact. And that's why, after a lot of conversations and a lot of thought, we decided to make a $535 million commitment to fight racial inequality, to stand up for social justice movements. And that to me was such a watershed moment inside PayPal and for me personally.
So that is a huge pledge and commitment. What are some of the short, medium, and long term investments you're making with this money?
Yeah, well, we wanted to make sure that we could help in the short term. Um, for instance, Black owned businesses that, as you know, Shartia, were going out of business at a rate of 41%, that's almost double the national average. So there was a desperate need for an infusion of capital into Black small owned businesses. And then there are nonprofits that needed money desperately because there was so much demand for their services. And so we wanted to put money into those organizations as well. But if you were really going to go about addressing the racial wealth gap, which has been with us at exactly the same level since the last civil rights movement in the late 1960s. It hasn't improved at all. And we felt like that was something that we might be able to address. For instance, we gave $15 million of grants, not loans, but outright grants, to about 1,400 Black owned businesses. Um, and they were so desperate for that money because for so many reasons they just couldn't access the financial system, banks and that kind of thing. Here is the thing that I'm most encouraged about. 90% of those businesses that we gave grants to are still in business today. And as I mentioned, 41% of Black owned small businesses were going out of business. And so they just needed access to capital to really survive. And so the impact that we saw both in the short term and now what we're seeing as we do, um, investments that will help, create opportunities for real, I think, wealth creation. are just beginning right now. And that's why I say, like, we're in this fight over the long run. It's not just a short-term battle. We can't just say, okay, we did this and now let's focus on something else. The only way to really address this systemic issue is to be there year after year after year and not just give money, but give services, advice, counsel, team up with different nonprofit organizations, with academia, with government, to really try and figure out how do we address this issue that is going to be with us for a long time. And we shouldn't think there are any easy answers, but that does not abdicate us from our responsibility of standing up and being part of the fight.
I think one thing that I was amazed about last year, just hearing the number of major CEOs use the words systemic racism. And, you've talked about being, you have to be anti-racist. Can you expand on that as we all try to, dismantle systemic racism?
Yeah. I think anti-racist to me means leaning in and really being part of the fight. It's not addressing something or taking a short-term stand, but taking a long-term stand. We have issues that have vexed us as a country for a long, long time. And I think that leaders of corporations now have maybe a moral obligation to stand up to address these kind of issues. We can't just rely on the public sector to take the lead. I mean, we have so much resource inside our companies. We have control of the financial health of our own employees. I mean, measuring that, helping assure that all of our own are taken care of. Because, I mean, if you've got these issues that are systemic across the country, really across the world, then no doubt inside your company, you have the same issues. And, there's no excuse for us not to address those inside the company. And I think a lot of people are worried when they come into this that they'll say the wrong words or, they'll be misunderstood. And what I said to all of our employees is we need to go into these conversations that are difficult conversations, that are emotionally charged conversations with an open heart, and with a knowing that we're trying to address the issues, but we may not always get it right. But the enormity of the issue should not overwhelm any of us from taking action.
Well, do you think this time is different? Are you seeing a sea change within the corporate community at this time?
It's a great question. And I ask myself that same question many times. I am seeing a very legitimate addressing of some of these issues by some companies, but not by all yet. And I think we each need to encourage each other, because how we go about it at PayPal and how another company goes about it, it can be very different. And, they have to be aligned with the values of those companies. But one of the things that a couple of us are doing, Robert Smith and Rich Lesson at BCG, like we formed a group that is looking at a number of Southern communities right now where we can take all of the different commitments that have been made by corporations and really leverage them together and really see, like, in a certain community in a city like Memphis or something like that, can we make a real difference by leveraging the learning? If somebody is going to be addressing something into housing issues or education issues, we're looking at, the racial wealth gap. If we all work together in the community, are there lessons we can learn by the power of that collective? And then can we expand that to other cities and other communities and really have a blueprint to move forward? And I think if we can start to show that our efforts are really making a difference, we are all connected together. Every business, our communities, our economy, our democracy, they all rely on us addressing these issues together. And I don't think any company can think that it's an island unto itself, because we aren't. We are a part of our neighborhoods, and we are a part of our economies, and we are part of our democracy. And we all need to stand up. If we ever want to move from being good companies to great companies, we need to move from being a society that has all these systemic inequality built into it to being one that is much more just going forward. And I think if we can do that, we can have a thriving democracy. We can have people that think the system is working for them, be involved, rise above their own self-interest, and make our country as great as it can be.
Well said. We must leave it there, Dan. Thank you so much. Could talk to you all day.
Yeah, sure, Tim. Me too. I could speak to you all day long as well.
Thank you.